I have investigated abandoned hospitals. I have walked through houses where entire families refused to sleep in their own bedrooms. But nothing unsettled me the way that graveyard did. This case started with a phone call at 2:17 a.m. The caller did not introduce himself. His voice was low, controlled, but strained. He said, "People are seeing someone walking between the graves every night. And the strange part is we bury them during the day." Then the line went silent. No wudbie, no explanation, just silence. I traced the call the next morning. It came from a small town surrounded by dry fields and old trees that looked like they had been standing longer than memory itself. The graveyard was older than the town, established in the late 1800s. Generations buried in layered soil, weathered stones leaning at angles like they were tired of standing. When I arrived, the caretaker refused to meet me inside. He waited at the iron gates. He wouldn't step through them. He told me something simple. After sunset, it doesn't belong to us. I have heard statements like that before. Usually they come from fear, superstition, or imagination. But his hands were shaking, and men who work around graves every day do not shake easily. He explained that 3 weeks earlier, a fresh burial had taken place. A man in his early 40s. Sudden death. Closed casket. The night after the burial, a woman living near the cemetery claimed she saw someone standing beside the new grave at midnight. She assumed it was family grieving, but the figure did not move. It stood completely still, facing the headstone, for hours. The next night, someone else saw it again. Same spot, same stillness. By the fourth night, rumors spread, and then something changed. The soil above the grave began to sink. Not collapse, not disturbed by animals, just slowly sinking, as if something underneath was shifting. The town refused to report it officially. They didn't want attention, didn't want cameras, didn't want headlines. They wanted to stop. I asked the caretaker if the grave had been opened. He looked at me and said, "We tried." He told me that 2 nights earlier, he and 2 other workers came with shovels just before sunrise. They expected loose soil. What they found instead felt like stone. The dirt had hardened overnight, packed tight, almost sealed. That was when he stopped sleeping. I entered the graveyard at 6:42 p.m., just before dusk. The air was unnaturally still. No insects, no wind. Even the trees seemed frozen. I walked toward the fresh grave. The headstone was temporary, just a simple wooden marker. The soil did look different, darker, compact, not recently dug. But what disturbed me most were the footprints. There were impressions around the grave, bare feet, deeply pressed into the soil, and they circled the grave, over and over, as if someone had been walking around it for hours. But there was one detail that made my stomach tighten. The footprints were facing inward, every single one, like whoever made them never looked away from the grave. I checked the surrounding ground. No footprints leading in, no footprints leading out, just a circle. As night fell, I set up my equipment. Static cameras, audio recorders, temperature sensors. I positioned myself near a large tree roughly 20 feet from the grave. At 11:58 p.m., the temperature dropped sharply, not gradually, instantly. My breath became visible, and then the audio recorder picked something up, a sound that I did not hear with my own ears. Low, vet, like soil being pressed from underneath. At exactly midnight, I saw it, a shape standing at the grave, tall, still, facing the wooden marker. It was darker than the surrounding darkness. No features, no face, just a human outline, completely unmoving. I did not approach immediately. Experience has taught me that movement can change phenomena. I observed. Minutes passed. It did not shift, did not breathe, did not react. Then something happened that I have never encountered before in any case. The soil above the grave moved, not sinking, rising, just slightly, as if something beneath was pushing upward. The shadow did not move, but the air around me felt heavy, oppressive, like the pressure before a storm. My equipment began to malfunction. One camera shut off, then another. The audio recorder spiked into distortion, and then the shadow slowly tilted its head, not toward the grave, toward me. I had not moved. I had not made a sound, but it knew I was there, and that was the moment I realized something critical. This was not residual energy. This was not an imprint. This was aware. The figure did not walk. It did not glide. It simply appeared closer, now standing at the edge of the circle of footprints. The soil beneath it darkened further. The temperature dropped again, and then I heard it, not through the recorder, with my own ears. A whisper from the grave, not above it, from beneath it. It said one word: open. I have spent years studying cases involving possession, unfinished business, violent deaths. But this was different. This felt deliberate, controlled, like something was asking to be released. And in that moment, I understood why the soil had hardened, why it was compact, why it felt sealed. It wasn't trying to get out. Something was trying to keep it in. And that was when the shadow stepped fully into the moonlight. And I saw its face. But what I saw was not the man buried there. What I saw standing in the moonlight was not the man buried in that grave. It was him, but older, decayed, skin stretched thin and gray, eyes hollow but open. And the worst part, he was smiling. Not a normal smile, a strained one, like someone trying to hold something back. That was when I understood. The thing standing before me was not trying to escape. It was guarding the grave. Whatever was buried beneath that soil was not the man. It was something that had been wearing him. I demanded the caretaker return at sunrise with the proper authorization to exhume the body. No rumors, no secrecy. If this continued, it would not stay contained to that cemetery. At first light, we opened the grave. The soil that had been stone hard the night before was suddenly loose. Soft, easy to dig, too easy. When the coffin was lifted and opened, the workers stepped back. Inside was a body, but it was not decomposing normally. The face was frozen in terror. The fingernails were broken, and the inside of the coffin lid was scratched, deeply, as if something inside had tried to claw its way out. But that wasn't the worst discovery. There was soil inside the coffin, packed into the mouth, into the eyes, into the ears, as if the earth itself had forced its way in. We sealed the grave again, but this time with religious rites requested by the family, and soil brought from sacred ground outside the town. That night, I returned alone one final time. Midnight passed. The temperature remained steady. No shadow appeared. No footprints formed. The air was quiet, still, normal. Before leaving, I looked once more at the wooden marker, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw a faint outline standing beside it, watching, not threatening, not angry, just relieved. As I walked back toward the iron gates, the caretaker spoke behind me. "You fixed it." I didn't answer immediately, because in cases like this, nothing is ever truly fixed. It is contained, managed, held. I turned back once more toward the rows of graves stretching into darkness. And I said something I rarely say. Yes, but even now, sometimes at 2:17 a.m., my phone rings, and when I answer, all I hear is soil being pressed from underneath.